Intelligence experts believe that Daniel Pearl was targeted not just because he was an American journalist, but because he was Jewish. His captors forced him to state his Jewish heritage in a propaganda video before brutally murdering him on camera. The chilling story of Daniel Pearl's abduction and murder. Daniel Pearl was an American journalist chasing a high-stakes story in Pakistan. But what he didn't know was that his search for the truth would lead him straight into the hands of terrorists. A fake interview invitation, a ruthless mastermind, and a shocking execution that sent shockwaves across the world. Who was really behind Pearl's murder? Was it British-born terrorist Omar Sheikh who lured him into the trap? Or was it 9/11 architect Khalid Sheikh Mohammed who later claimed responsibility? This is the harrowing story of one of the most brutal crimes against journalism, the journalist who walked into a trap. In early 2002, Daniel Pearl, a Wall Street Journal reporter, was investigating links between Pakistani extremists and Richard Reed, the infamous shoe bomber. He was in Karachi, following leads that could expose connections between radical groups and global terrorism. Pakistan was a dangerous place for journalists at the time. The country was a hotbed of extremist activity in the aftermath of the US invasion of Afghanistan. Several militant groups, including Al-Qaeda and Jaish-e-Mohammed, were operating within Pakistan's borders, many with suspected links to Pakistan's intelligence services, the ISI. Despite these risks, Pearl was determined to pursue the truth. He was following a lead about Sheikh Mubarak Ali Gilani, a cleric suspected of ties to Al-Qaeda. But unknown to him, someone else was watching, someone who had already orchestrated kidnappings and had ties to global terror networks. His name was Ahmed Omar Sheikh, the master of deception. Ahmed Omar Sheikh. Omar Sheikh wasn't just any terrorist. He was highly educated, having studied at the prestigious London School of Economics. But instead of a life in diplomacy or business, he chose jihad. In the 1990s, he had already kidnapped Westerners in India while posing as a journalist. He was later arrested, but was controversially released in 1999 after the hijacking of Indian Airlines Flight 814. That hijacking, believed to have been backed by Pakistan's ISI, resulted in the release of Omar Sheikh and two other terrorists in exchange for the passengers' lives. Now back in Pakistan, he was using his expertise in deception to lure Daniel Pearl into a trap. He posed as a source who could connect Pearl to an important militant leader. Through fake emails and phone calls, he convinced Pearl that he could get the interview he was after. The moment Daniel Pearl arrived at the meeting spot, he was ambushed, kidnapped. His captors quickly released photos, Pearl in captivity, a gun pointed at his head. They issued demands, calling for the release of Pakistani prisoners held in Guantanamo Bay. But this was no ordinary kidnapping. The real terror was yet to come. The darkest twist. Enter Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. While Omar Sheikh was the mastermind behind the kidnapping, the execution itself took a horrifying turn when another figure got involved. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. KSM, as he's known, was not just any terrorist. He was the chief architect of the 9/11 attacks. He had been on the FBI's most wanted list for years. But his role in Pearl's murder was even more chilling. Years later, during US interrogations at a CIA black site, KSM shockingly confessed, "I personally beheaded Daniel Pearl with my blessed right hand." But why would someone as high-ranking as KSM take part in this execution? Intelligence experts believe that Daniel Pearl was targeted not just because he was an American journalist, but because he was Jewish. His captors forced him to state his Jewish heritage in a propaganda video before brutally murdering him on camera. The execution video was sent to the media and intelligence agencies. It showed Pearl's final moments, his throat being slit, followed by his beheading. It was one of the most graphic and disturbing videos of its time, meant to send a message to the world. In the immediate aftermath, Omar Sheikh was arrested and sentenced to death in Pakistan. But here's where the story gets even more shocking. In 2007, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was officially charged with Pearl's murder by a US military tribunal in Guantanamo Bay. In 2011, Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was killed in Pakistan, raising further questions about Pakistan's role in sheltering terrorists. Then, in 2020, almost 2 decades after the murder, Pakistan's Supreme Court overturned Omar Sheikh's conviction, citing a lack of evidence. He was ordered to be released. This decision outraged governments worldwide, especially in the US, where officials had long suspected that elements within Pakistan's intelligence services were protecting Omar Sheikh. Daniel Pearl's legacy. Daniel Pearl's murder was not just a crime against one journalist. It was a brutal attack on press freedom. His family turned their pain into action, creating the Daniel Pearl Foundation to promote cross-cultural understanding and protect journalists. The foundation funds journalism fellowships, promotes peace, and fights against intolerance, turning tragedy into a powerful movement for change. But Pearl's case still raises major questions. Was justice really served? Did Omar Sheikh and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed both play a role in Pearl's murder? How deep do the connections between terror networks and political systems run? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth investigative content.